Hey everyone, your local expert Josh here with our first episode of Broker Talk, Why Shop Local. So with that, I want to start out with a couple definitions of, what people use to shop local to describe is, frequenting local vendors, and whether it be a restaurant or a retailer, frequenting locally owned places to help keep a more sustainable and thriving local economy. And I also want to define what a locally owned business is compared to what we're kind of talking about here as a franchise business. So a locally owned business is a business that's one locally owned by a community member, and it's native to the community that it serves. So that's one that's important. And another thing that goes into the locally owned business is that, keep in mind, is that they don't have any financial obligation to an outside source or an outside person or company outside of our community. Okay. Now, local businesses come in all shapes and forms. They can be your local retailers, local grocers, farmers, and even your local real estate brokers. Okay. The other side of things is what we call franchise. Now, a franchise, I'm sure everyone's heard of what a franchise is. A franchise is essentially what I try to explain it as a business in a box. It's essentially a name, brand, and set of procedures that a company that was created in some cases many years ago, sometimes there's newer franchises or what have you, but they were typically created in some other place, and then they essentially sell their name and brand and procedure to people that are interested in buying. So in the real estate business, you have franchise brokerages, which is essentially any of the large names that you've seen out there. And what those brokerages do is they have that brand, that procedure, and kind of a way of doing business that they will allow a broker to buy into. And typically what happens with a franchise is you usually buy in with a certain amount of money, and then that franchise tells you you can use their name, you have their set of procedures and the way they go about doing business. And then after that, they don't do that for free. So not only, some of them have buy-ins, but most of them have royalty fees. Now the royalty fees are kind of what we're referring to when we're talking about money that is actually taken from our local economy and sent out of our area to wherever those brokerages, those brands are headquartered. Okay, so typically with a franchise brokerage, real estate brokerage, you're looking at probably around 8% of the revenue generated in our community is actually going to be sent out to that brokerage's headquarters, wherever they're headquartered. Okay, really what it comes down to is that it's important to shop local so that we can try to craft a sustainable economy for our local businesses, for everyone involved in our local community. That's really important. And in order to do that, we should try to frequent the locally owned businesses over a franchise business whenever possible, right? So, and to take it away from real estate for a second here, that means, maybe going to a locally owned grocery store as opposed to a, franchise chain store. Maybe that is going to a retailer that is downtown, or maybe not downtown, maybe a local retailer that's outside of town but still in the area that's local and locally owned, right? Maybe that is, instead of going out to a chain restaurant, you go out to a locally owned restaurant. We have a lot of great businesses downtown, a lot of great businesses in our area, but not only make it through but thrive. We want to get to a situation in our community where we're not trying to just make it through the winter so that we can get to the summer. Ideally, for everyone in the community, it's always best to have an economy that is healthy throughout the year, where we can sustain by ourselves without having too much of support from outside help, or too many people outside locked into the revenues that we generate in our community. So that's what I wanted to go over today.